I used to hate it when someone would say lead with your heart, but now I really appreciate what that means. Hey, this is Tracy with Tracy Talks. Welcome. There was a time in my life where I was in a rough period. A long-term relationship had ended. I was in this unknown gray area. And I was working with a woman to improve my intuition and develop my skills. And there were so many discussions that we had where she would focus in on the energy of my heart. And when you work with someone who sees energy and reads energy, there's no hiding, really. They can see through that. And so she could see my heart. She could see the hurt and the pain and everything that was in there. And she didn't know specifics, but still, it was obvious that I was going through something. There was a lot of discussion about going into my heart space and expressing what is in there, whatever that is. And at the time, it really just kind of irritated me when she kept saying that. Because it's like, I know my heart hurts, and I don't necessarily feel like I need to have a discussion every single day. Like, who am I going to talk to about this? Because some days I realize that it's a lot. It's physically taxing to be in all of those hurt feelings all of the time. And then gradually, layer by layer, like there's been lots of layers that have been removed and pulled back and exposed and healed and all of those things that we do. And now, 15 years down that path, after the healing, after the removing and uncluttering of my heart, I know now what it means to speak from my heart. I'm not going to say it's easy, and I don't necessarily have the words in the moment when something happens or comes up or when I have feelings about something. But that doesn't mean that I can't collect my feelings and collect my thoughts and circle back around to a conversation with someone and say, when we were having that moment and we were talking about this, and in that moment, I couldn't express myself in the way that I wanted to, in the way that I needed to. And I'm circling back around now because I have thought about it. And this is what I felt. This is what hurt. This is what I wanted to say, and have an honest conversation about whatever it is. Especially when I was younger, there was always this fear of being authentic and being honest. And there was so much fear about how is it going to be received? If I say I love you and I care about you, and the person doesn't say I love you back, there used to be more of a fear of being crushed by that moment. And again, with age comes this wisdom that I've been through a lot. I have the tools. I have the knowledge and wisdom. I have managed to live my life up until this point. So I'm going to be fine. I'm going to get through whatever situation I'm faced with. And speaking from my heart and sharing my feelings and being in a raw, vulnerable state is one of the ways that I'm going to get those connections in life that I truly do want, that mean something. And it's time to stop hiding. It's time to stop keeping our hearts locked away in a safe. And I don't know if we have this feeling that we're so fragile that we can't get through another heartbreak. And the majority of us would be fine. Again, we're strong, we're resilient, we have the tools, we have the wisdom, we have the credentials. I mean, I know some really strong, amazing women in my life who have come through some extremely challenging situations. And I know none of us want to sign up for that again. We feel like we've got our badges, like we're all wearing our spiritual karmic badges, like this is what I've been through, this is what I walked through, this is what I've experienced. But we're here and we made it. We survived it. I appreciate all of your likes and subscribes. It really helps me out. And then that follow-up, that second part of the survival is being willing to show up again in the world, exposing our heart, exposing who we are, being vulnerable, ready to connect. I know for myself that there's times where it's like when I look back at my disastrous marriage and I think, how did that happen? And how did I get in that space? But the realistic assessment now is I am not that same person. That situation is most likely not going to happen because I can see the red flags. I know myself more. I know what decisions I made back then and where they were coming from. And it's safer for me to speak from my heart. It's safer for me to show people who I am and let people in. And it's interesting when you see somebody who is really speaking from their heart. The message sounds so different than someone who is speaking from their ego. That there is, at least for me, there's something there that draws me in a way, and it's mesmerizing and it's intoxicating. My journey of communicating hasn't always been easy. When things were falling apart in my marriage and I was trying to write these feelings out that were in me, I had written a poem, and it was a poem of what I was going through. And it wasn't just a couple of lines. It was a whole series of statements that, started one place and then had an arc. And then I felt like it was coming back around and kind of like drawing a conclusion in. And when I read it to my now ex-husband, there was one line in the middle about, needing to focus on me. And when I shared it with him, that was the only thing that he got out of all of it, that I wanted to be selfish. And I remember how frustrated I was because I was trying to find the words. I was trying to find a way to connect to him. And he took my words and he tossed them all together and changed the meaning and changed everything about them to suit the story and the narrative that he wanted to believe. And some people could see that situation, and I can even see that situation and think, okay, that's why I can't speak from my heart again, because somebody's going to twist it and turn it into something. But I've also realized that when somebody does that, they are unwilling to meet me in that heart space where I'm at. Because even if he didn't agree with what I had said, even if he thought it was all a load of crap, he could have very easily said, that must have been really difficult for you to share with me. And that would have been a response that was heart-based and willing to meet me in that vulnerable space where I'm at. And there was a long period of time where I didn't want to open up my heart again because it can get twisted and turned and manipulated and all of those things that happen when we allow people in. But I'm also valuing that when I'm willing to be vulnerable and when I'm willing to be in that space and somebody can't meet me there, then that is the information that I need. I no longer want to feel bad about showing those hurt parts. I don't want to feel bad about speaking my truth. I don't want to feel bad about being vulnerable. Because I do have the tools now. I do know what it looks like to have a true friend, a true person who can just sit with me in that moment when I'm going through things. And then I know what it looks like when somebody can't meet me where I'm at. One of the hardest parts of this journey for me has been learning to keep my heart open when I know I'm in the presence of somebody who's going to hurt it. There are just people in my life and probably in your life who can never meet you where you're at. And it's a decision of, do I just cut people out? Or do I close my heart off? Or this last scenario of where I have been learning to keep my heart open, knowing that I'm probably not going to get the support that I've wanted. I'm probably going to hear something that stings. But I've been on this path to try to figure out how can I continue just to walk through the world and be open and not always with this heavy shield and hiding away and with my armor and my protection on thinking everybody's going to screw me over. And this is not to say that I'm walking into situations where I have high risk. These are just everyday moments where I'm trying to show up leading with my heart and choosing to try just to be in the moment without the walls, without all of this armor. And I just have to remind myself that I can be vulnerable. I can open up my heart because I have the tools, I have the wisdom, I have the strength, I have the courage that I can get through whatever shows up. I don't have to be afraid to let somebody in. And leading with my heart isn't this big, scary thing anymore. Those authentic connections that I really do want, they only really come when I open myself up. So everything that I want is dependent upon me being open and available and willing to let people in. Thank you for listening to this episode of Tracy Talks. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and share with others who would enjoy listening to this podcast. Friends can find Tracy Talks available on iTunes, Spotify, Substack, and YouTube. Hit me up on Facebook and Instagram at More Tracy Talks. And until next time, we meet again.